Hey, construction enthusiasts. Before we dive into today's episode, a quick shout out to the OGCA Construction Symposium, the go-to event for industry leaders. This year, it's bigger and better, with an expanded education program, an interactive trade show, and exclusive networking opportunities. Join us at the Blue Mountain Resort and Conference Center from April 11th to 13th. Visit ogca.ca for details. Don't miss out on the OGCA Construction Symposium, where innovation meets industry excellence. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey, and with me today I have
Stephen Callender from Bass Installation.
And Natasha, Callender-Wilson from Bass as well. Yep.
And one of the reasons we're talking to you today is it's Black History Month. We just barely squeaked under the wire here, but it's going to come out tomorrow, Wednesday, on Black History Month. And I'd like to start the origin story of Bass Installations, because Stephen, you came here from Barbados to Toronto, and I'm guessing, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that you were one of the first Black contractors working, at scale, I guess, to put it, because you've worked on some big projects.
I'm sure there's more. Some of the Black contractors just kept themselves hidden, like I did for many years.
Mm-hmm.
The history, I came from Barbados, ended up working in Barbados Boulevard in Scarborough on a window factory. And eventually I had a chance to go working outside in April with snow blowing down my back, and enjoyed it. And people still think I'm crazy because I like the change of seasons. But
I agree. You are crazy.
Yeah, so after that, I applied for a job installing windows, and I got that, and ended up going from that into the iron workers, and worked with a couple of, I worked with one mainly window manufacturer, curtain wall manufacturer installing curtain wall.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, a partner of mine decided to start a business in the recession of 1992. He left in 2003, hence last year was our 20th anniversary. That's a short-term version of it. I know, Natasha, you want to add anything that you see fit?
So 2003, Bass Installation formed after the first construction company you owned in 92, Steve.
Yeah.
And from there, we got some really cool contracts, like the Yorkdale Skylight was probably one of my favorites back then. And a lot of jobs really around the GTA. We also did a lot of revolving doors for Stanley back then. So we were very proud to say we've touched almost every building in Toronto some way or some shape, form, right? Back then, I think I was still in school, if I'm not mistaken, and I had the opportunity to work for my dad and go to school so I can get my degree. Given that opportunity, it's something that we're really proud of giving back for our staff currently, and that's an employee tuition reimbursement program that we've offered. But then, coming up through the ranks, I remember working side by side with Steve. He'd be pricing jobs at night, and I'm doing the bookkeeping and payroll by day, and just trying to get ahead and trying to make the business grow. Not ever really realizing where we'd get, but, we had to get the work done. So he would go to the jobs on the job site. I'd go to school in the days and get my work done for school. And I think organically, I can remember just remembering how we needed more help, and we just couldn't do it alone anymore.
Which you eventually did, right? Yeah, you eventually
did. Yeah, and we had our first employee who's still with us to this day. And when I say employee, I mean from the office side, of course. But yeah, it was just magnificent to see how we just organically grew into the Bass Installation that we are today.
Now you mentioned, Stephen, that you kind of kept the fact that you were a Black contractor hidden. And I remember reading in one of the interviews you did that you didn't put your picture on your website. So that's fairly recent when you think about it. So have you seen any progress on that front? And if not, why not? Not that you can answer for everybody, but.
Well, it's funny. My picture's still on the website. Not that we need it, but I was in a last year, Black History Month. I was in a panel with two of the Black contractors, and I mentioned this, and then the moderator went to these other two, and there's a lady. She said that her picture is done on her website because of the same reason, because she had a lot of kickback. And the other guy said that he didn't have, but he tried to do the sales and he wasn't any success. So he hired a white salesman and everything changed. So and his picture was not on his website also, and I was kind of shocked that it's still happening in this day and age. So it still happens.
I mean, maybe that's a good segue to the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association, which you founded. So maybe you could explain why you thought the reasons, are the obvious ones, that needed to happen. And I think one of the reasons I read about was that you couldn't even find a list of other Black contractors.
Yeah, it wasn't me directly, but an organization I'm involved with TCBN, Toronto Community Benefit Networks. They were in Ottawa before some subcommittee or some politicians there, and there was a general contractor in Toronto saying that they cannot find Black contractors. So they came back to Toronto trying to find Black contractors, and they couldn't. I had met the CEO at that time, and they called a group of us together to say, okay, do we need to have a directory of Black contractors? How can we find Black contractors? And if we can't find them, maybe we should create an organization that can actually put Black contractors together. And that's the reason behind ACA being formed. That was talked about it, then COVID hit, and we all scattered. And then when the news started appearing downtown Toronto, a few of us said we gotta do something about this and get together and push to get it started. That was 3 years ago. We're 3 years old now, and we have about 140 members. We're still small, growing slowly but steady.
I was going to ask about, a pretty sensitive topic, the noose thing, which is awful, obviously, but I haven't heard of any incidents since. Has there been progress on that front as well, kind of ferreting out people who have done this kind of thing? I hope so.
Yeah, there always was some things happen on site, and it was usually taken care of. I think in that time frame, I guess with the political stature everywhere, people felt they had the balls to do these stupid things again. So that sort of came back up around that time. That has died down. There's still innate racism that is not going to go away in a hurry.
Of course,
You just got to deal with it and move forward. As I tell people, the way I came through working in construction was that if I couldn't go around it, no, if I couldn't go through it, I went around it. Some people say you wouldn't have to go around it, but in those days you had to work around to get ahead, and that's what I did.
Natasha, you've talked a lot about mentoring in interviews I've read with you, and do you find with Black youth that you want to get into the trades? Is that a sort of an impediment, or is it just the usual youth don't want to get in the trades, or is it a combination of the two?
I think it's definitely a combination of the two. I think also by not knowing the right avenues and channels to get into the trades is a big issue that we're having now. There's just so many varieties, and I mean, we're union based, so we're always pushing the unions first. But there are streams through universities and colleges. It's just, I've always felt very passionate about why not go to a union that can help support your learnings, especially coming back to how I got started while working and earning a decent living for a decent wage.
And as a woman in the trades, which is in and of itself fairly rare, but it's getting a little better, but it's not, and more on the business side as you are. But what has your sort of experience been in that regard?
Well, it's funny. I remember a job back in North Bay when we had, this is probably 2005, Steve. I don't remember exactly the date.
Around that.
It was one of my first job sites that I actually got to tour and take kind of a road trip on. So I'm walking through the job site with my construction hat and my notepad in hand and feeling pretty confident. And literally I'm hearing tools drop and, guys just stopping and staring. And honestly, my first impression was like, well, maybe they're just stopping and staring because I'm beautiful. Not realizing they've never seen a Black woman on site before, especially in this rural area of North Bay, Ontario, or Norfolk Bay, Ontario. Yeah. But it was only after, in hindsight, looking back, did I realize, that's kind of what it was, It does make you feel a little bit awkward at times.
I was going to say I understand, but honestly, I don't as some white guy. So my sympathies, I guess, is a better way to put it. So what are some of the positives that you found in the last, because how long has the company been around? Since the 90s, right?
Well, 20 years,
so
since
30 odd years or a little bit more. Yeah. But 2003. Have you seen any positives that have happened, and have you guys yourselves been sort of the cause of those positives?
Let me jump in on that, because the company BOSS is 20 years old, but I've been on business from 1992. I think it's 39 years or something like that. We calculated. We've had different names before, and we finally stuck on BOSS. Things have changed, and I think the biggest change was since the George Floyd, the whole thing about getting more Blacks into construction. I got to be careful when I say things online, but I'll drop one again. Is that it just floors me that now, because you got people retiring, baby boomers are retiring, all of a sudden you hear, well, there's an on-top source of new potential people to get in construction. The Black community, the women, it was always there. It's only now that people say, there's an on top. Really, that bugs me, but it is what it is.
Well, please elucidate if you want to. Like, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. People need to hear this kind of stuff. So
Yeah, true. Yeah, that was my take. It is getting better. There's a lot of initiative for DEI 3 years ago, 2 years ago. This year, you can see that it's dropping. I mean, and especially in the U.S. now, they're talking about you can't compare. Well, you have to compare the U.S. to here, but the they're trying to abolish this the thing in the U.S. where I forgot the name of it, but you know what I mean. They're trying to abolish that, and we were dealing with a company that is U.S. based, and we're trying to get them to do a sponsorship, and all of a sudden they said, "Well, we are waiting for the Supreme Court to decide on something before we go forward." Well, if you're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide on this initiative in the U.S., well, is that part of the company or just for the government just to tick a box? And that's a problem sometimes with some companies. Well, DEI, well, we have that. So that's
I
a
was going to
problem.
ask about that. Do you see that as just kind of the thing where people want to tick a box, or do you actually see people, and you don't have to name names or anything, but are there companies out there who actually want change, or is it kind of a different wall you're running into essentially?
There are some that really want change, and some companies that stuck with ACA from the time we started and still support us. Some again, you can tell that we are not big enough for them. We're not significant for them to use that as ticking the box. So you're too small for us. You don't mean much. But some companies really want to make a difference and help us, and that's the one that I really appreciate.
And Natasha, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I totally agree. I think there are some companies that mean well and they actually do want to make a difference, and we've partnered with a few of those good companies. But unfortunately, yeah, there are just people taking those boxes. I think the biggest way we can make a change is really changing the policies and changing the way things are worded. Especially after COVID, I think there's an opportunity to focus more on people and looking at good people. So if you find that there are people within the staff that, whether they're Black or from a BIPOC community, why not give them the opportunity to be in leadership and in management, especially if they fit the criteria that we're looking for, that have, the merits, the education, the experience, and if they don't, let's coach them, right? And that's how we can make this a better community overall for the construction industry.
One thing I got to add, when we all start looking at quotas and DEI, we look at ourselves in the office and says, well, wait a minute, we already pretty diverse. We go, why? We never tried to do it. We never thought of it. We were just diverse. And we said, well, what's our hiring practice? And our hiring practice was hire the best person, depending on it didn't depend on the color or anything. It's just the best person for the job. And then it dawned to us that some companies, they do hire for name. Just looking at the name, they probably would not call you in. We have different names and different cultures. I mean, if you have a potluck in the company, you got stuff coming in from all over the world. And that happened organically. And it just happened because we hired people for what they know and if they're coachable, as Natasha would say. And a lot of companies are not doing that. They look at the name alone and they say, oh, no, that's not a person.
Or demographics, right?
Yeah.
What part of the city are they from? Just placing those stereotypes. Absolutely. Good point, Steve.
Okay, and if anybody wants to find out more about BAS Installations or about the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association generally, where should they go to find that out?
Well, we definitely have a website, www.basinstallation.com. We also are on socials for LinkedIn and Instagram.
And ACA is www.accan.com. And we are on LinkedIn and especially Instagram.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us today.